I don't know how much of our last conversation you heard. And I'm sure you've been following LeBron on Instagram, and he talked about what they're going to say now. Come up with some criteria that nobody else in history has ever had to deal with. What do you think he's saying there? What's he getting at?
Well, I wrote in the intro of this column is like when you talk about LeBron's legacy, it is filled with doubt every step of the way. The Chosen One Sports Illustrated cover, he was a guy who went to the finals at 22, won a scoring title at 23, and an MVP at 24. Okay, check. The guy leaves Cleveland. Everyone thinks there's no way that guy can be beloved by Cleveland. He wins at 2 titles in Miami, finals MVPs, and then goes back to Cleveland and wins the title, beloved by Cleveland again. Check. Wins the titles in Miami, which a lot of people thought he was a flawed superstar who couldn't win the big one. Check. And then he goes to LA and replenishes the stature of the Lakers. Check. So every step of the way of his career, LeBron James has quieted the doubters. And so I can totally get why he's sitting here being like, I wonder what they're going to make up now. And I think, what I get at in this column and what I'd love to hear you guys talk about here is I think it's wrong to think that LeBron should try to get to 6 titles as if that's going to change the conversation in his favor, because I think no matter what he does and how unfair it is for LeBron James, if he gets to 6 titles, most people are just going to think 6 losses in their head. The 6-0 spotless record by Michael Jordan is unassailable in his corner. But for LeBron to win the GOAT debate, he's going to have to, in my opinion, change the conversation like he always has. And to me, that's getting all-time scoring leader, beating Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record. He's 4,000 points away. And I think Anthony Davis is the perfect running mate to get him to that next step of his career. And once he wins that all-time scoring leader, when it's not even his best skill, I think the GOAT debate will be over.
It's so interesting, Stro. I mean, we talked about this yesterday of how he is totally fine with Anthony Davis too. When he talked about from that press conference, he said we're not jealous of each other and we push each other. You can see that. I mean, Anthony Davis was their leading scorer. He gives you 10 assists a game. LeBron did highest assist total in his career. He's equipped to do exactly what you're saying, to play with another superstar and be fine with it. But my question for you is, where do you think he goes in the next 4 years in terms of his play, championships? What's in store for LeBron 4 years from now?
You could say that his body's going to deteriorate somewhat, but this dude just led all postseason players in transition buckets by a mile. You can put Jimmy Butler, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Russell Westbrook transition baskets this entire postseason combined, and LeBron still has more. So we're talking about a guy he's approaching 40 years old, and no one can still stop him like a freight train in the open court. And so when people say, like, what's this decline going to look like for LeBron? I still think that LeBron James has a couple more years of being an unstoppable force in transition, and the pick and roll with Anthony Davis is going to become that much more impossible to guard now that Anthony has seen he can win a title at the 5. When he becomes a center, defensive player of the year, pick and roll partner with 3 shooters around them, good luck. And so in the open court and in the half court, I think LeBron James is going to have a field day, even as he turns 36, 37, 38. I think he's going to win this scoring title. And especially with Bronny, his son, on the horizon, I just think at the end of the day, people are going to see this guy aging into 40, and he's not going to fall off like we see typically because he takes such good care of his body. I think he's going to be more or less the same player we saw last year.
That's my question for you. You talk about taking care of his body. We were talking the other day. I said to Mike, you very rarely saw Michael Jordan just kind of sucking for air. He was just his motor was very high. Same thing with LeBron James. Any stories, any legendary stories? I know how workouts are important to a Pat Riley organization. Some of his stories are legendary of like how he would find guys for being a pound overweight. But you hear any workout stories of LeBron and some of his feats in the gym?
Yeah, LeBron, like he doesn't need to do the off-season workouts to just walk in and run everybody out of the gym. There was one time where in the finals he was doing a a practice where he was beating Ray Allen and Mario Chalmers in a 3-point contest around the world. And I remember watching this and being like, this guy is going to lead the NBA in assists potentially. He's going to make, lead everyone in the paint field goal percentage. And yet we still haven't seen him at his peak in terms of shooting. And this guy does have that lever where he can pull and be like, I'm just going to hit 6 3. You saw that at the end of the finals where he was just like, I'm going to hit 6 3s. And in terms of fitness, I mean, I remember Brian Windhurst, who had covered LeBron for, a half decade before I got down to Miami. And he said, when you see LeBron's ankles, they're the size of normal person's thighs. And when you look at it in person, it is just jarring. It's just how big those legs are. You can't put it into words. Like, they're tree trunks. They're huge. And so when you talk about LeBron James as a point guard, that dude in any other era is a center. Like, he's 280 pounds and 6'9".
Right.
He's bigger than Ben Wallace. He's the same size as Dwight Howard. And so when we talk about his abilities to age, he's just got such a strong base, and he's a point guard. Like, he's got so many different skills. And, I don't want to hear this whole Michael Jordan, against the Magic series, like he wasn't in shape. I hate that narrative. Like, the guy scored 48 points in that first game of that postseason when he came back against the Hornets, and he dropped 39, I think, in game 5 of that Orlando Magic series, which he lost. So, like, this idea that Michael Jordan wasn't in tip-top shape and therefore we can discount that I'm back season, it's ludicrous. We would never give LeBron the benefit of the doubt there. Let
me go back to your original point. I mean, I agree with you, obviously, that Anthony Davis is going to extend his career in a multitude of ways. But I was thinking when you were talking, and I'll tell you what I said yesterday about what LeBron may do in a Laker uniform, which is important. Let me stress that again, Tom. Laker uniform. He could pass Kareem in a Laker uniform. He'll probably pass Magic in assists in a Laker uniform. And he'll join an interesting conversation, whereas Laker greats are their own kind of NBA history top 5. You can do a top 5 or Mount Rushmore with just Laker players. And that's a pretty good all-time NBA top 5. So there's something emotional. And that's where I would go if you still think LeBron can win the GOAT debate, if there's a winning the debate for LeBron. I don't think it's empirical because he's already passed Jordan on the all-time scoring list. So he's already got more points than Jordan. And Jordan people will just say, well, yeah, Jordan went to college, for example. You know what I mean? Or he retired twice. You know what I mean? So, he's already got more points than Jordan, more assists. There are people, and I'm not one of them, who like to think that LeBron is so much better an all-around player than Michael Jordan to begin with. So I'm not sure, what I'm saying is, I'm not sure that for some, being the all-time scoring leader is a mic drop moment for LeBron James or Michael Jordan. I think it's got to be something more emotional, and it just might be running off with Anthony Davis, to your point, as a sidekick, 3, 4, 5 more titles to where it's just like, okay, look, he lost 6, but my goodness, he's got 7 or 8. It might have to be that kind of thing. He might just have to really dominate the league for another 5 years to win it in some people's mind.
Right. So what you're saying is there's going to have to be a story in his favor, a legacy, a narrative that makes people
he's got
feel
the numbers. Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
He already has more career win shares than Michael Jordan. He's already got more points than Michael Jordan. He's already got more playoff wins than Michael Jordan. He's got more finals appearances than Michael Jordan. So what you're saying is, I agree, is that this isn't going to come down to the numbers. It's going to come down to how, if you hate it or not, the narrative, right? And so I think one thing we don't talk about enough is LeBron James. He rides into the sunset with his son on the Lakers. We haven't seen that, right? Like the whole story of LeBron James changes if he's playing NBA basketball long enough that we saw him as a teenager and to bring his own son who's a teenager. Like, talk about the narrative. LeBron being beloved by Cleveland. Think about that. Imagine if I had told you in 2010, when you saw what was happening in the arena in Cleveland, the signs that they were holding in Cleveland, which is the ugliest that sports has ever been, that same city would love LeBron again, right. Never count him out.
Michael, you understand what I'm saying, Michael? Like, it's just, because this whole argument is emotional right now, because if he passed Kareem, then maybe that puts him above Kareem on the GOAT list. He's already passed Jordan. The whole thing is emotional. But, Michael, can't you just see somebody 20 years from now, yeah, but Michael Jordan ain't never played with his son. LeBron played with his son. I mean, that's
right. But, you know,
I guess people will reach for anything in this conversation.
Well, but, you know, and Tom, you just said something, you know, to talk about the emotional part of it. And Michael, you said the same thing. What is that for you? What is that emotional thing that you won't let go of? Is it a sports thing? Is it a musical thing? Because I'm just trying to understand why it's so important to people to protect, for those who are Michael Jordan people, so to speak. Why is it so important for them to protect Jordan?
Oh, I know the answer to that.
Like, Jordan's going to be great whether whether LeBron passes him or not. He's still great. You know, why is that so important?
I already know the answer, but go ahead, Tom. You answer. I'll tell you the answer after Tom. Go ahead, Mike. Tom.
Well, for me, I was a huge Red Sox fan growing up, so you guys will appreciate this. I was at Fenway Park for Game 3 of the 2004 ALCS. I still have the ticket stub in my pocket. And as a Red Sox fan, being in Fenway Park for the bottom of the barrel, down 0-3 in a series against your hated Yankees rivals, and then that team coming back from down 3, win 4 straight against the Yankees, and then winning the World Series, which, by the way, everyone forgets the World Series after that. The way it happened, that feeling of what it was like to be in Fenway Park and feeling like this was done, the whole insecurities of being a sports fan is true, and then to come back and roar back and make everything right again and be in that just euphoric state. That's what I think Cleveland fans have felt when LeBron won 2016. And I just don't know if LeBron has a national level of that, where Michael Jordan's follow through against Utah. I mean, you can't script it any better than that. And so it's going to be hard for LeBron to top that.
You know what's interesting too? Just going back to, like, there's always somebody doubting. And I'm going to answer your question too, Michael, but before it just popped in my head too. Even if you go back to Game 5, which feels like, you know, it never happened, but then the Game 5, that same old right basketball play versus killer instinct, take the shot conversation was kind of creeping up. But then obviously Game 6 rendered it a moot point. Michael, you know why? You know why people won't let go of stuff like Michael Jordan? Real simple. People don't like to be wrong. People don't like to be wrong. They don't like to change their mind. And you know who really doesn't like to be wrong? Old people. Old people. So the older you get, the more set in your ways you are. You ain't about to tell nobody who grew up on Michael Jordan or before that Magic Johnson that somebody gonna come around and be better. You ain't telling them that. It's it's same with Kobe. There's a generation of people that are like, yo, what about Kobe? What about Kobe? Kobe's the GOAT. Why are you always talking about Jordan? Because they grew up on Kobe and they're not changing their minds. People just will not step back and say we live in a society in general. People, Tom, you know this, will not step back no matter how many numbers you put in front of them, Tom. They will not step back and be like, you know what? You're right. You're right.
Like, hey, I said, I saw what I saw.
Never
I don't care what you say.
They will never do
keep
that.
Your little numbers. Keep your little numbers.
Exactly. They will never do that. Hey, Stroh, before I let you go, man, I got one more thing for you. I want to talk about Jimmy Butler, because typically we don't remember who finishes second. That's not somebody who I think will forget that performance. Those two masterpieces he put up in the finals, that iconic photo of him being exhausted. You want to talk about somebody who was a worthy adversary for the king. Sometimes you do remember who finished second. Like, those are you see the numbers right there: 26, 8, and almost 10 assists a game. How will history look back at this performance from Jimmy Butler? And also, how do you view Jimmy Butler now moving forward in terms of just your overall hierarchy of NBA stars or even superstars?
He reminds me of D Wade before LeBron came to Miami, where he is the institutional guy. Like, he is the reason why LeBron went to Miami and trusted D Wade and Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley, because he's the incumbent, right? For me, I don't think Jimmy Butler gets his full flowers until Giannis Antetokounmpo comes to Miami and wins a title next to Jimmy Butler, just like LeBron did with D Wade. Like, I think that is when Jimmy Butler's true power will be understood, because that's the thing. Jimmy Butler was supposed to come in here and in a couple of years maybe get to the finals, another co-star. He's already there. He's already legitimized and pacified the critics. And so I feel like Jimmy Butler, I wrote a column about this too, is people didn't give him enough credit because he didn't win deep into the playoffs. And Eric Spoelstra called him an anti-analytics guy. The analytics have loved Jimmy Butler, and now people are starting to see he is super efficient, gets to the free throw line like crazy. And people in the analytic community love free throws. They like three-pointers, but they love free throws. And so Jimmy Butler, the reputation that he's getting right now, man, like the analytics and the numbers community have been screaming for years for him to get in a winning situation, and he's there in Miami.
Cool, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Hey, we appreciate you, bro.